Welcome to Football Worldwide. Welcome to Everything EPL. Yes, I know that is probably one of the most outdated intro videos you will see as the transfer window has gone into full swing. And with only days remaining, there is plenty more to come. I am joined this week with a special guest, Alex, who is a Newcastle supporter, one of very few that I know. Alex, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Tell us about yourself and tell us how you came to start supporting Newcastle.
Thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, so my old man is from Newcastle in England, and sort of the only reason that my family came to Australia in the first place was that my great uncle was a youth player and a reserves player for Newcastle in the 70s, and he was bought by an Australian club when he was about 21, 22, and came over here with my great aunt, and then my grandparents moved over here, sort of followed them there. That whole side of the family migrated over with my dad as a real youngster, and then it's been in the blood since, mate. Couldn't support anyone else or I'd be disowned. So
yeah, look, when you got ties that deep into the club, it's very hard to move past supporting them. But at the same time, I'm sure it's painful at times being a Newcastle supporter, and we'll get to the pain that you would have experienced this week. But yeah, we've got a nice jam-packed show. International break is upon us, so a lot of these teams will be going into a 2.5-week break now. So lack of domestic football, but we welcome back international football. So without further ado, let's go into the English Premier League. We will cover what was Matchday 3. So the results were Manchester City kicked off Matchday 3 with a 5-0 thrashing of Arsenal. We'll get to this one soon. Newcastle Southampton played out a 2-2 draw. Brighton were defeated by Everton at home. West Ham and Crystal also played out a 2-2 draw. Norwich and Leicester came out better off on that one, winning 2-1. And Aston Brentford shed the spoils with a 1-1 draw. Liverpool Chelsea, one of the most anticipated fixtures this week, played out a 1-1 draw, as well as Burnley and Leeds United. Tottenham scraped through with their third 1-0 win of the season in a row, and Manchester United ended the weekend with a 1-0 win away at Wolves, who now Manchester United hold one of the they actually hold the longest unbeaten record away from home at around, I think it's 28 games. So
yeah,
Ole's doing something right there. But let's get straight into it. Manchester City, as you can see, I'm a City fan, have been for a while since Mancini made his debut at the club, but they're known for scoring their goals. And you normally see score lines of 5-0 at the likes of Norwich, at the likes of your bottom half of the table teams like Newcastle and so forth. But Arsenal, in a world of trouble, 5-0. They lost 3-0 to Chelsea last week. They lost 2-0 to Brentford the week before. 2-0 to Chelsea. And 2-0 to Brentford. But 9 goals scored, conceded, 0 scored. 5-0 to Manchester City. My question to you, Alex, is Arteta the problem, or is there an issue with the players? Like, they've had the highest transfer spending this window across all of Europe, but they've got a player like Xhaka getting a red card for something stupid. Can you blame Arteta for all the problems here?
I don't think that all the problems are Arteta's, because a lot of them were there with Emre. And although Arteta's had some money and some time to mould that team in his image, he's not got a lot of the players who play in the style that he wants to play. He doesn't have all his fit players at his disposal at the moment. And like, you can see what Granit Xhaka can do for Switzerland, playing really free with no expectation. But as soon as he puts on an Arsenal shirt, he has a brain snap every 2 games. And that tackle, as unnecessary as it was, like, he got a ball. If he goes in one-footed, it's not even that bad a challenge. So to jump in with both feet, it's just stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I just think yeah, you had Manchester City who were linked with Harry Kane. He announced that he was staying. They needed a number 9. Now linked with Cristiano Ronaldo, and we know everyone knows what's happened with that saga. But they've put 5 goals past Arsenal. Last week they put 5 past Norwich. Do they have an issue with the number 9? Is the traditional number 9, in all sense of the words, in England, is it a traditional number 9 required when you've put 10 goals past 2 teams and goals have literally come from every shape and angle? Last week there were 5 different goal scorers. This week there were 4 different goal scorers. Is the number 9 the problem at City?
number 9 is definitely not a problem at City. Like, they won the league last year basically playing without a recognised striker for 2/3 of the season. And even when Aguero and Jesus were fit, they were shadows of themselves. So I don't think that's a problem for City because they'll pass you to death and then score at some point. In saying that, they're scoring 5 goals in games like this off, I think they had like 25 shots. A lot of it came after, they were 2-0 up when Xhaka went off. But a lot of the shots and a lot of the pressure came after that Xhaka red card. And when you've got guys that can move the ball around like Sterling and Grealish and De Bruyne still to come back really properly from injury, Foden to come back from injury, these guys are so creative. And that's not even to mention the upward turn in form that Gabby Jesus has had the last couple of weeks. Like, he's just been incredible, essentially playing as a right winger with no striker to aim at. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think putting 5 past Arsenal at the moment really isn't what you would call a great feat and a great achievement with the issues Arsenal's gone through. And I've said this about Liverpool in previous weeks, they may be smashing these teams which don't have much behind them, but at the same time, it's the defence. They limited Arsenal to 1 shot, and it wasn't even on target. So Liverpool's done the same throughout the season. If your defence is strong enough, you have that freedom up front. And I just think Guardiola, he almost won everything there is to win last season, and he fell 1 short at the Champions League final. But I personally think, all bias aside, with this jersey I wear, I just think that there is a good chance he could go deep into this competition if they survive PSG in the group stage and can come out of that unscathed.
Yeah, I actually think for City, drawing PSG in the group is a good thing because you haven't had an awful lot of change in your side, but they've just brought in 6 massive egos, 6 massive pay packets, like great, like really, really good big players. But on the other side of that, you've got Poch, who, yes, he did a great game, he did a great job at Spurs. But none of those players had the same egos that you're going to have with Neymar, Mbappe, Messi, Ramos, and like Donnarumma, commanding. Yeah, Wijnaldum as well. Yeah, I love Genie.
Yeah,
Can't talk smack about Genie. Yeah.
Look, I watched the PSG game, which happened this morning, and let me tell you, they look disjointed. They look like a team which does need to start to gel, and it can be expected with big moves like this. But let's move on to your beloved Newcastle. The final score's 2-2. I'm going to hand it to you. Tell us what there is to know about this fixture.
Look, to be honest, it was a really exciting game. There was lots of attack and transition from Newcastle, and Southampton really, really are good at just pressing off the ball. So they did keep an awful lot of the possession. They won back the ball quite quickly. But Genepo scored a very nice goal for Southampton. We answered back with a good finish from Wilson, diving header, and then thought we'd won all the biscuits at the end there with St. Maximin sort of tearing up that left wing, a couple of interchanges of pass, and then a nice finish. Only for lost academy products to get taken down in the box by our captain, and the rest is history. Ward-Prowse doesn't miss pens, mate. So that was heartbreaking.
Look,
Yeah,
as heartbreaking as it might be from a fan's perspective, I think credit's got to be given where credit's due. If you look at the clinic that Southampton did with Manchester United last week, who
yeah.
are probably one of the top four, well, many predicted to be one of the top four contenders this season. And the way they got that lead and they defended so well, where they still walked away with a point, for them to then turn around and some would say a point for Southampton was a failure against Newcastle, whereas 7 days earlier a point was something to be praised. So I think credit's got to be given where credit's due. And I don't know. I think Maxim up front is just. I'm scared of him when you come up against him. He's just one of those players you can't afford to lose. And unfortunately, for a Newcastle fans' perspective, I've just got to put it to you: is it going to get to the point where he thinks I'm valued more than this club at the moment, and I got to move on?
Look, I think the Joe Willock signing is big for St. Maximin. So they, in the loan last year, became like really, really good mates. They're about the same age. They're into the same sort of stuff. And there was posts when they both went back to preseason at different clubs, like "Miss You, Bro" and stuff like that. So I think that getting guys the profile of Joe Willock in at Newcastle will help us keep St. Maximin. The other thing is he's on a 6-year deal. So that's the Newcastle lock him down and sell him high technique that Mike Ashley loves so much. So I think that we'll definitely get to keep him for this season. They put 70 mil as a price tag on his head, which I think is a scare tactic because as good as he is, he's not the most polished finisher. And he does have a sort of like Traore. He has a tendency to dribble to nothing. And although I think he's much better in the final third than Traore, he still needs some work. So I think if he was to move, it would be, he'd have to move to maybe AC in Italy, someone who's a big club, but right now probably aren't challenging for the league. And look to build towards something. There was rumours for Everton earlier in the summer, and I don't think Rafa's the right coach for him, even coming from a Newcastle perspective, because he's another guy that likes to sort of sit a little bit deeper and hit people on the counter. And although St. Maximin's really good at that, I think more or less, if you give him the ball in the final third rather than in your defensive third, that's where he can really do damage. If he hasn't already run 60 meters, he's probably going to cut 3 or 4 blokes, no worries,
Yeah, look, I got to agree with you. And on personally, moving from Newcastle to Everton, I don't think the reward is there. If you were moving
No.
from Newcastle to Tottenham or Leicester or something, 100%. But Everton, why would you move a sidestep rather than move forward, sort of thing? So,
Yeah.
look, at the end of the day, I think it's great for Newcastle if they do manage to keep him. And like you said, that they love their 6-year deals, and that price tag they slapped on him. You know what?
Yeah.
If someone turned around and said, "Look, we're going to give you that money," well, all credit to Newcastle. They just made 70 million. You look at Inter Milan. They said to Chelsea, "We want 115 million euros for him. That's the only way you're getting Lukaku." Well, they came through, and both teams are reaping the rewards. But we'll leave your pains behind us. We'll move to the next fixture. Brighton, Everton. Everton walked out 2-0 victors in this fixture, but Alex, the talking point is the penalty. Richarlison, Calvert-Lewin, there were ongoing fight between the two of them in regards to who's taken this penalty. And I don't know how much Everton you know, but from what I've seen, Calvert-Lewin's their strikeman. Calvert-Lewin's the man who steps up. He takes that penalty. He converts almost every time. For you to have an outburst like that, then for the captain to get involved, hand it to Calvert-Lewin. Now, I personally think all the pressure in the world is on Calvin to get this ball in the back of the net now. Whereas before it, there was no pressure whatsoever. And then if he misses Richarlison, what's your take on this? Because we see it. We don't see it too often, but when we do see it, it's seen as something, out of the blue. It was like when the Chelsea goalkeeper didn't want to come off.
Kepa, yeah.
Kepa
Wouldn't
didn't want
come
to
off for
come off.
Caballero.
You're going against your coach. You're going against what's set in stone. What does it do for the team in the dressing room now? And what happens next week? Do they leave it there, or is there always going to be that in the back of the mind when someone goes down in the box?
I think that, I've played in teams where you can be the penalty taker and someone can put their hand up, and if you're not feeling it in the moment, of course you pass that one on because you need to be in the right mindset to take a pen. I don't think DCL is ever going to be in that mindset. He's so good at just tucking him into that bottom corner, and he's a goal scorer. That's what he does. For Richarlison to get up in his face, it's really arrogant. It's obvious that DCL's their penalty taker. Rafa's really set in the way that he does stuff like this. So he would have a penalty taker. He would have the guy that would take it next as well, written down. It would have been sent out by someone to a trainer to say, sort this out now. Like, it's not like either of them won the pen either. It was won by Seamus Coleman. So I can't see any way that this doesn't have some negative effect in the dressing room, but strikers bicker over who's going to score more goals. Strikers have that natural competitive edge. It's what makes them strikers, So if you got the balls to say, I want to step up and take this and take it off your number one penalty taker, I think the pressure's on you then straight away to say, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think we leave that one there because I think we could talk all day about bust ups, and it's a fun topic, especially when it comes to football managers and so forth. But moving on, West Ham 2, Crystal Palace 2. I watched this game as well. This was the game I watched live, and it had everything. West Ham took the lead twice, only for Crystal Palace to strike back twice. This isn't the Crystal Palace we have seen the last 2 weeks, but sure, it was something to be seen. But I've got to say, Antonio for West Ham, he is something special this season. And yeah, we're only 3 games into the season, but he looks the goods. Honestly, he looks like he can carry this team into, I'm not going to say winning it, but he could potentially carry this team into a Europa League / Conference League spot with lack of injuries, of course, when it comes to the team. And you also got to remember this is the same team that defeated Leicester only 4 days earlier, and it was a 4-1 win. So what's your thought on Antonio? What's your thought on how the season is going to go for West Ham?
I think that Antonio specifically is a worrying guy to play against. He's big. He's good in the air. He's got a good touch. He is a guy that he's a budget Lukaku for me. Like he'll back into you and turn you or burn you for pace. There's not really anything he doesn't have in his game. Considering he started as a right back, right winger, that's something to be beholden as a striker. Now, my worry for West Ham in that sense is that they don't have another one. They don't have another striker. So if something happens to Antonio, who has really been a shining light, like I watched their first game against Newcastle, and controversial penalty aside, their backline seems a bit shaky. I know they just signed Zuma, but I don't know that he makes them really European contenders as a single signing. And although Cresswell's really good going forward, I'm not sure about him on the back foot. So I think as good as West Ham have been to start the season and as good as Antonio has been, I think one injury sort of deflates their season. And we could see that happen early because now Antonio plays for Jamaica, so he's going to go on away trips with his country and stuff like that. So,
yeah, look, I think you see this happen a lot, especially in the Premier League, where an underdog pops up to begin with, but when the going gets tough, you have fixture congestion, you hit that Christmas period and it's fixture after fixture after fixture, and then you've got the AFL and you've got the FA Cup. You've got everything happening. The congestion causes issues, fatigue causes issues, and that leads to injuries. But I don't think West Ham have the team, like you said, to push, but it would not surprise me with the way the rest of the league is performing at this moment. But with that being said, we move to the team Leicester defeated last week. West Ham defeated last week Leicester, who defeated Norwich 2-1 in what was a fantastic showing by both teams, and only to have Norwich disallowed a goal at the death by VAR. It was an offside call, but the issue wasn't the player who scored the goal. The issue wasn't a player who touched the ball in the lead-up that eventually led to the goal. It was a player who was standing in front of the goalkeeper in an offside position, obstructing his view, and the ball went in. Is VAR, in your opinion, ruining modern day football by becoming a game of VAR was introduced, let's say, to bring certainty. And we've seen time and time again last season where for a hairline or a fraction of a millimetre, an offside goal was not given. Now they've thickened the line and given that benefit of the doubt, which I believe is a good factor. But is this constant reliance on VAR, and I'm sure as a Newcastle fan, any football fan in the Premier League, when you score that goal, you're waiting for the referee to allow for kickoff. Is it ruining the game?
I think it's taken a lot of emotion out of the game, for sure. Obviously, like when it was brought in to make like goals certain. No arguments at the pub, no arguments in the ground, nothing. Everything's checked, everything's done. But you see things all the time that either VAR don't pipe up about, or they make the wrong call, or like, you know, when you're talking about like just tiny margins and they have to look at it for 5 minutes before they can make a decision. What's the point in that? Like, give the benefit of the doubt to the attacking team right there. And like when you're talking about the margin for error was already under 10% for referees for the most part, and it's just gone under 5%. Like, I can live with an 8% error rate from a referee. I can live with that. So either like I don't have a problem per se with VAR, but I think like any sort of video refereeing system, it needs to be right, or there's no point in having it.
Look, I agree with VAR in the sense of checking for penalties, because as a referee on the field, you can be very persuaded by a player because their character leads you to believe that they dive. And you won't award the penalty for that instance. And I agree with they check it in the background as play resumes. But at the same time, when you score a goal, even the players now, you can see they're a bit deflated in that sense. But I think it got it right in this time, 100%. The player was in an offside position. He obstructed the view, which was unfortunate for Norwich, who had an incredible showing this fixture. But at the end of the day, it's the smaller details and something where a camera, and we'll come to it when we talk Liverpool Chelsea, but one frame in a camera sequence shouldn't distinguish whether it's a penalty or a goal or etc. Just got confirmation now. Manchester City, they must have heard you talking about the 6 years. Manchester City have just confirmed they've signed the Ruben Dias for an extra 6 years until 2027, which in my opinion, as a City fan, is a phenomenal signing. He has been absolutely amazing, but you heard it here first, guys. And on that note, we will move into the next fixture. Aston Villa, Brentford. I think I'd rather talk more about Brentford than Aston Villa right now. Aston Villa, they got the point. It was a 1-1 result. But before the season, I didn't know Brentford. I was one of those people that Googled, who is Brentford, when I saw they were coming up. But when you look at this now, do you think that Brentford are here to stay this season? Or is this just early on syndrome where they're running this momentum train?
Look, having spent a couple of recent seasons in the Championship as a Newcastle fan, I was well aware of Brentford, but it's only really in recent times where they've started to sell guys on for really big money, where I've sort of taken a lot of notice of them. And I think that they have the right formula to stay in the league. I just don't know if they have if they have the right talent. Like I think Christopher, who they signed in their backline, is Premier League ready, but he will take a minute to bed in. I think Ivan Toney, who we sold to a League One team, we being Newcastle, sold to a League One team for £200,000, and then he scored 30 goals he set a goal scoring record in the Championship last year. I think that he's the right kind of striker for the Prem. He's very quick. He's very tall. He's got good feet. So I think like when it comes to Brentford, they have the right formula. And Thomas Frank is a really, really technically good manager. I don't know that they have the personnel, similar to Norwich, where they've got a good like European manager who wants to play really good football. But it's one thing to play beautiful football when you've got the squad City have. It's another when you're dragging like players out of League Two in France and trying to turn them into Premier League superstars overnight. You know, like I think they might be a step too far this year, but I think the early signs for Brentford are really good.
Yeah, look, I really do have to agree on that one there. But we won't continue with Brentford there. We will move on to what I would say would be the fixture of the round. Liverpool won, Chelsea won. This fixture here was something where it was overshadowed by a refereeing decision. And overall, the first half was very even, and Chelsea got the goal, freakish header from a corner, and he literally just went straight over the keeper. But the momentum looked with Chelsea until I personally think it was an accidental handball. At the same time, it did stop a goal. But I feel a penalty and a red card was something that was not deserved in this instance. I feel that when they said they were trying to eliminate the whole double jeopardy where you either get the red card or you get the penalty, I think this was one of the instances where there was no intention in what happened on the goal line as to there was no malice. It wasn't a Luis Suarez in the World Cup where he tried to stop a certain goal. It wasn't a Maradona where you're trying to score a goal and get it in the back of the net. But I just think this is an instance where the referees did get it wrong. This is an instance where, Reece James, you could tell, and this is where I'll come to you in regards to VAR. When you look at the screen, VAR showed the referee on the day, which I'm trying to get his name, but can't see it, so it doesn't make a big difference. There you go. So when they showed him the screen, it was one frame. The ball hitting before it went in the net. Now, if you watch the whole version leading up until that, you see the ball hitting the leg and going into the arm. Now, yes, a goal was stopped, and definitely it was an illegal motion. It's not like the arm was attached to the body. His arm was out. But he didn't make movement to stop the ball with his hand. A red card, I think, was too harsh. All credit to Chelsea for holding on and going an entire half of football against a team like Liverpool at the moment. And it just shows the calibre of Chelsea. But I got 2 points that come out of this, and we'll get to the second one shortly. But what's your opinion in this instance? Is this an instance where let it go, or should the referee have seen the whole thing? And in your opinion, when a referee is at that screen looking at the VAR, should the public see what's happening on that screen? Or should that just be for the referee's eyes only and it just lacks judgment from the outside?
So, in terms of like the public being able to see what the ref sees, I think that not showing that would stop a lot of the debate that comes from it. But in saying that, it could also make it worse. So like in this instance, we know that he only saw the frame of Reece James hitting the ball with his hand. To me, James's hand was in a natural position because he's just lifted his thigh moving toward the ball. So I don't think in any way this should have been a red card. It was deflection up off his thigh, and I've said a couple of times to other guys who I've been talking about is that I think he's a victim of his own success in that if Mane knocks in the rebound, or I can't remember who shot the third block, but if either of them get knocked in, it doesn't even get reviewed. No one's going to look at it and go, well, he handballed it here, so we're going to disallow that goal, red card him, and give you a pen. That's never going to happen. So to me, it's not a clear and obvious error, the red card. So I don't see how VAR can pipe up about that or allow Anthony Taylor to just see that one image to make this mistake for me. I don't think it's a red card in general, but by the letter of the law, stopping a goal-scoring opportunity with your hand in the box is an immediate red card. I just don't think that that's the intention behind what's written there. I don't think that an incidental handball like this one where it's bounced off another body part should be a red card. And it kind of gets to the point where if someone shoots at you from 6 yards and hits you in the hand in the box, are you not denying a goal-scoring opportunity no matter where you are? So
yeah, definitely. And I just think you gotta use common sense at times. And we saw in the World Cup, the Euros, the most recent Euros. Sorry, the rule was adjusted, and in the first fixture of the tournament, Italy-Turkey, we saw a goal. Not a goal. We saw a penalty not awarded, although there was handball. His hand was on the ground. It's not a natural position, but he made no intention of playing at the ball. A penalty wasn't given. It wasn't even reviewed. We've seen it now in the Serie A where they've changed the rule that many times, and now they've finally got the consistency. Well, the call's there. It can hit the hand in the box. But if the player's turning their back and putting their hands up and it makes contact with the hand, well, there's no play at it. So you can't award a penalty on that pretense. But at the same time, if the referee awards it there and then, well, you can't argue with it either because the ball's come into contact with the hand. But if it goes to a review, you just got to use common sense. And I just feel VAR is applying pressure to the referees as well. Because if VAR turns around and says, you got to review this, when do you see the referee not change his decision? Right? Yeah. Sometimes I feel the referee need to hold their own as well. I feel they've lost their balls. Sorry for my language, but they've lost their balls in this instance, and they're too scared to talk and say, no, you're just a person on a computer somewhere else. I'm here. I'm live. I know what's happening. That's not a penalty. That's not a red card. That's not a handball, whatever. But as soon as they hear in their ear, I got to check the computer. All right, I'm going straight there. Yeah, no, don't worry. I feel like he didn't show any consideration whatsoever. I don't know if you're familiar with the A-League here in Australia, but they're very open at the end of a fixture where the referee actually has an interview with Fox Sports in Australia. So it's like ESPN, BT Sports, wherever you are in the world, beIN Sports, and they make a discussion about why that decision was given. Now, if you went to him after that fixture, I don't know if he can give you an answer. Oh, his hand was there. What did you see? It come off his leg? No, I just saw the photo. But games aren't decided by photos.
No. And, I think for any handball in the box, you've got to go with the context. He wasn't... It's not even that his hand was in an unnatural position. It is a tiny bit away from his body, but he could walk like that all the time. No one had even noticed until his arm wasn't tucked right against him while he's standing on the goal line, who's to say whether that's his natural arm position or not? But I think, realistically, he's lifting his leg in that direction. There's some contact between leg and hand, and then it comes from his leg up to his arm, and that's the handball that's given. He's then tried to reef his hand away from it because he's felt that it got hit. I just don't think that in any instance that's a red card. I I've watched it again and again and again, and I've heard the only people I've heard say this red card are Liverpool fans. So
Yeah, and look,
yeah,
I think Liverpool fans are the hardest ones to talk to and reason with because they're still stuck in 2019.
yeah,
But
mate.
we'll
This year's
leave
their
that
year.
there.
Every year.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, every year's their year. But I
yeah,
want to talk about Chelsea's most expensive signing in Romelu Lukaku. He came from Inter, which are my beloved team, and it was hard to see him go. But one of the criticisms myself and a lot of fans outside of not just Inter but the rest of Italy noticed with him, he's not a big game player. He goes missing in these big games where he can put 3 goals against the Arsenal's in this season. I can't believe I'm saying that. Arsenal aren't a big
yeah.
game player, but he can put goals against Arsenal. He can put goals against the Brentfords, the Newcastles, the Evertons. But when it comes to the big teams, he just disappears. And we saw again in the Euros, he played well until he faced a team like Italy, and then he struggled. Was Lukaku part of Chelsea's undoing, or was Chelsea just in crisis control after the red card?
I think that like when you when I watched the game, you could obviously see that Chelsea were inviting that pressure on sitting in deep and making Liverpool try and shoot from distance. And the thing with Lukaku is he's a really, really good back to goal striker, which makes it really hard for him to get involved when the transitions are so fast. And although he's quick and his touch has gotten much better since playing under Conte, um, and his all-round game got better at Inter. There's no question about that. But I think like if you can't feed the ball into him at his feet back to goal and give him like half a yard to turn his defender, it makes it really hard for him to show his best self. He's not a arrive at the back post late tap in kind of striker. He's not one that is going to cut in on his dominant foot and try and finish. He's a guy that he's a power striker. He'll run through you rather than trying to go around you. And I think you saw it when they did the quick transition in the second half, and I'm not going to say he butchered the chance, but when you've got a guy like Joel Matip jumping in front of you to block a chance when it's essentially just you and the goalkeeper, if you have a better first touch, I think he has scuffed the opportunity to sneak 3 points like against the run of play there. And as much as I think Lukaku is a great player, I think the criticism against, leveled against him in games like these big games, a lot of it has as much to do with how he's utilized in these types of games as it does about his overall skill set. And I think that one of the best things that Inter did with him was pair him with a striker whose skill set was the complete opposite. So in Martinez, he's so fast and will dart in behind, and he's happy to drop off the play. He's good when Lukaku drops off the play, stuff like that. I just think playing to Lukaku's strengths in it, like if you're gonna play against the big teams, they have to play a second man up top, and I kind of think Werner's perfect for that for Chelsea. But obviously, going down to 10 men for the second half didn't make that a possibility for them in this game.
Yeah, definitely. I just feel you've hit the nail on the head, and I just want to mention Lukaku. I feel will shine in a specific style of play, and if Tuchel's anything to go off, he will change the game plan like that when he realizes play's not working for that, or the team is not has the team's adapted to his game plan, and he needs to change it. I think this is where you'll see Lukaku's weakness shine right through, and you'll find him being subbed off more often than not because they need to bring in Werner, even though he's lacking that striker ability, that goal scoring ability that he's shown in the past. But my question to you is, and we'll get more in depth into it as at the end of it, but are Liverpool or Chelsea contenders this season, or are they pretenders?
I think that Liverpool are a midfielder and a striker short. I think that addition of Ibrahima Konate, having Van Dijk back and Matip back, Joe Gomez back, Trent and Robertson, if they can both start firing again, that's only going to like spur them on. And as good as Harvey Elliott is, he's still a teenager. Like, he's not ready to replace Gini Wijnaldum. They don't really have a guy who can replace Gini Wijnaldum, even in Thiago or like I think Kaiser's probably the closest navigator. But he again isn't a guy that's going to sacrifice all of his output for his input like Wijnaldum did there. So although Wijnaldum's not like a stat player where you can see he's got 15 assists or 10 goals or anything like that, he'll pop up with important goals, and but he'll have 95% pass accuracy and he'll just be everywhere. And I don't think they have a guy like that right now. And I think that that's so important in a Klopp system, that if they could get another midfielder in like that, maybe like Yves Bissouma from Brighton, or I can't even really think of another guy who might be willing to sacrifice himself like that. I think that they might struggle to replicate their title-winning season. For Chelsea, although the Lukaku signing cost is so high, I don't think they're going to struggle to sub him when they need to. And I think that they like selling Tammy for them is fine because he does everything Lukaku does, probably a little bit worse. As much as I think Tammy Abraham's a great player, he's just not at that level yet. And I think that some time in Italy might help him shine. But, you know, if they need pace and guys that are going to get in behind, they have Werner. If they need a little bit more give and go and finesse touches around the box, they have Havertz who can play there. And they're all pretty... They can all play a number of positions sort of outside of Lukaku. So I think, like, you're right there. I think Lukaku might see himself playing a lot of 65 minutes or 70-minute games. And then someone will come on and try and win it at the end for Chelsea.
Yeah, and I think you were spot on when you mentioned Liverpool. And although they've got a great team, it's not the best. But I think that Chelsea, personally, are the biggest threats to the clear favourites in Manchester City at the moment, in the sense of they've just got that consistency and they've got a winner in Tuchel, and we've seen what he can do. The team from last season has not changed much. It's improved. And yeah, you mentioned Havertz, you mentioned Werner, you've got Pulisic as well, Mason Mount, who are just amazing players and they're only getting stronger and better. And then you've got N'Golo Kante, Jorginho, as well as Kovacic, who's just popped out of nowhere. And you can chuck in Marcos Alonso, and we saw what he did round one with his free kick. Like, anything's really possible with this team. They've got extreme depth, and the Champions League draw really helped Chelsea. They drew Zenit, Malmo, and Juventus. And Juventus, I don't know, again, with the Serie A, but they are struggling at the moment, especially after losing Ronaldo the way they did. So out of all the English teams in Europe, Chelsea have the easiest run, whereas you may see City, Liverpool, and United sacrificing points in the EPL to accommodate their schedule for the Champions League, whereas Chelsea can potentially not need to field half their squad because the group is just telling. But we'll leave that there. I think it was a great discussion around that. But not the final. So final day of match day consisted of 3 fixtures. The first one being Burnley Leeds. It was a 1-1 draw. Brentford gets the ball in the back of the net again. But I'm going to hand it to you, Alex. We'll keep it short and sweet. You told me something before the podcast. This game consisted of 2 goals, but sum it up.
They were the most Burnley goals for both sides that I've ever seen. Chris Wood tapped in a deflection, essentially, from about 2 yards in front of the goal, and Brentford did pretty much the same thing to level it up real late on. It was the most Burnley game I could have ever watched, and I watched Newcastle play Burnley in a 0-0 draw in the Carabao Cup in midweek, and that was a less Burnley game than this one. Honestly, it was boring. It was a bit of a game of attrition, a lot of like 50-50 niggle tackles, wasn't great.
Yeah, well, we'll move on. We'll leave that there. Tottenham defeated Watford to keep their perfect start intact. They won 1-0. But the talking point from this fixture was Kane's returned. He's in the starting lineup again. But although they won 1-0, and I'm a critic of Nuno Espirito Santo, especially with the raps he's getting at the moment, I just feel it's not inherited. The 1-0 win against City, yeah, you beat the champions, but my God, it was against a run of play. And then last week, again, they got the 1-0 against Wolves, could have went either way. And then this week, that Son goal. Who do you blame there? Because I felt like the goal was in slow motion. It was a free kick. And I had to watch it a couple of times because I was like, there's got to be a deflection somewhere. But when you look at the ball, it's like it's a magnet. And none of it repelled all the players. It didn't attract them. It pushed them away. And it just, who do you blame there?
I think you have to blame the keeper because it curves away from the line running at it to try and knock it in, but that keeper's got to make some claim for it. I know it was high, I know it was like it was whipping in, but honestly, it was just there was no pace on the ball. I was amazed when it went in, and my fantasy team loves that Son scored. But other than that, I have no idea how that went in. Not baffled me from the get go, to be honest.
Yeah, and we saw so during the week we saw the transfer of Sissoko from Tottenham to Watford. I don't know if you've seen the footage, but Sissoko belted the ball at Espirito Santo as he was walking off the field in a row of frustration. He clearly didn't want to go to Watford, but I just think still think they're the only team with the perfect start, but it's been 3-1-0 boring victories, in my opinion. And when you look at this team and, even with Harry Kane staying, I just think the wheels are going to fall off sooner rather than later. And we've seen them in Europe already. I don't know.
Is it Europe? Is it Europe?
Well, it's technically Europe, but I didn't even know the game was on until I saw on the fixture list a couple of weeks ago. But other wheels going to fall off, and I'm not going to ask you other wheels when other wheels going to fall off, and how long is it going to take until we find out this Tottenham squad.
I think that I don't know that the wheels are going to fall off, but I think that like at Wolves, Nuno is going to. He might lose those creative players in the middle of the park. At Wolves, you have Moutinho and Neves, who are incredibly gifted footballers, and he's got like Dele Alli, Højbjerg, they've got Lo Celso, Tanguy Ndombele. Like these are guys who are incredibly gifted footballers who have played under Poch and Mourinho, guys who are punching well above their weight in terms of managerial talent there. And I just don't think that you can have a guy like Nuno, who even the players know he was like 8th on their managerial wish list. I don't know how he's going to control a dressing room with egos like that for an entire campaign. And I think at some point the wheels are going to fall off. I do think it's good for him that he got rid of Sissoko, because Sissoko can cause that in a dressing room. That happened at Newcastle. And I do think, although Alderweireld was so good for them for so long, I think that he's another one that can cause a stir in the media, and it's probably good for them that he's gone. And to get Christian Romero in from Juve was good for them. So I think Tottenham are probably going to finish maybe 8th or higher. It's just depending on how long Nuno can hold that dressing room for. And I mean, if the results keep coming, 1-0 boring wins are still wins. So if the
3 points is 3 points.
Yeah. If the results keep coming, I don't think he's going to lose the dressing room. And he definitely won't lose the fans, because Tottenham have only played decent football for 4 years under Poch. They never played decent football before that. And Mourinho is another manager who likes to sit in and break. So I think Mourinho prepped them to play under Nuno. And I think that Nuno might get the best out of a guy like Ryan Sessegnon. And obviously Matt Doherty's going to be good there. But it's all to be seen so far. And for me, Kane's head has been turned. So he's probably still the favourite for the Golden Boot. But he missed an absolute sitter last week against Wolves. He took 2 or 3 shots in this game where I was like, oh, it's Harry Kane, he's going to score. And as devastating as it is for England, I couldn't care less about Spurs, to be honest. And his head's been turned by the thought of potentially challenging for it all at City to just end up being coached by Nuno back at Spurs.
Yeah, look, I think last week when he missed that sitter, my opinion was, he's waiting for City to ring. He's waiting for City to ring. He's waiting to do that medical. But then this week, I just think you mentioned earlier, Son's great for your fantasy league. Him not putting these goals away is not great for mine. I had him as captain and did not go down well at all. But overall, I just think, Tottenham will provide problems. I think they faced City at the perfect time. First game back, there was a lot of rumours and a lot of injury, to say the least, in regards to the City camp. But he'll be found out, and when he does, it's not going to look pretty. But we'll move on to the final fixture. It was Wolves hosting Manchester United, and Manchester United won 1-0. But I watched the first 60-odd minutes, and I can't say that Manchester United deserved 1-0, 3 points after 60 minutes. It was a very lackluster performance in regards to the way the game was, and there are a couple of great chances created by Wolves that just were not converted. And I mentioned earlier throughout the pod, there was a blatant red card that I think VAR should have really intervened here and gotten Pogba sent off. But Varane masterclass, in my opinion. He has shown why Manchester spent the money to bring him there. Sancho started. I was quite excited, but in my opinion, the word of the impending official signing of Ronaldo has stirred the pot a bit. I think, you got players like Bruno Fernandes that are taking the penalties and converting those penalties, and he's leading the midfield and essentially the team because Maguire's not doing much from the back there. But Ronaldo's going to come, and is this ego going to be too much for the Jadon Sancho, the Varane, who he's finally he's reunited with, the Jadon Sancho, the Pogba, the Edison Cavani, which we've seen rumours of drama already because he doesn't want to give up the 7 jersey. Pogba, you know what's happened there. So I'm in two minds about Ronaldo joining United, and I don't know if it's for the better or for the worse, but let's go to the Wolves fixture. What do you think, and what's your opinion on Ronaldo coming full circle?
In terms of the Pogba challenge, it was bad, but I think he benefited from catching pretty much just the ball with one, as Neves hits it, and not really catching Neves on the way through. But it was a lot like the Xhaka tackle. So it's kind of amazing that one can be a red and one cannot even be reviewed and in the lead up to a goal. But on that, you have United fans against Southampton having a go at what I thought was physical, but what I thought was probably a fair challenge when I can't even remember who made the tackle, but they stepped in front of Fernandes and knocked him down in the lead up to Southampton's goal. Yep. To me, that was a fair challenge, and you had United fans sort of sooking that Bruno was fouled in the lead up for the entire week, and then you have this where it's a definite foul in the lead up. Like he's jumped, he's started exposed at the ball, all of that, and all they're talking about is the Varane pass that led to Greenwood scoring. And although it's great that Greenwood's getting on the score sheet for them regularly, I think that it's they I don't think they were the better team for the whole game, and I think they got out Uniteded, at least United under Ollie, and they got caught on the break a lot by a Wolves team who have done the same sort of thing for the last couple of years under Nuno, And I think that if Adama Traore had sort of any semblance of finishing in him, they probably wouldn't have lost on the day. As good as Varane was, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, look, I think, and I've said it from the start of the season, even though they kicked it off with a 5-1 win, Manchester United at the moment are a Ferrari, and Ole's treating it like he's driving a Ford. He doesn't know what he's doing, and I just think him as a manager, you put any other manager, if United side Conte this season, I would have been petrified of what they could have potentially done in the title race. But I just think he's going to cost them fixtures, and he sort of lets players manage the team rather than him take the lead. But we'll move on. The EPL table has taken a bit more shape as we moved into the conclusion of Matchday 3. Here you have it here. Tottenham are outright leaders with the perfect start. Three games, 3 wins, 9 points. West Ham, Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Everton are all sitting on 7 points with 2 wins and a draw. Manchester City, Brighton, Leicester, Sheringham on 6, Brentford on 5, Aston 4, Southampton 3, Watford 3, Southampton 2, Crystal Palace 2, Leeds United 2, Burnley, Newcastle on 1 point, all out of relegation. Wolves, Norwich and Arsenal sitting on 0 points. Arsenal dead last, but I think the telling sign for Arsenal at the moment is the -9 after 3 games, 9 conceded, none scored. I'm going to throw it to you quickly before we wrap it up. Who do you have winning the Premiership? Who do you have being relegated?
I think that sort of anyone out of City, Chelsea, Liverpool, and United can win it. I think player for player, United probably have the best first 11. With Ronaldo now, probably have the best first 11 of any club, the most complete anyway, when everyone's fit. I think the only thing they're really lacking is a DM, but I think any of them can win it. I'm not going to rest on my laurels. I think City will win it. And I think that if they don't, it'll be seen as a failure because they have the best squad and the most depth, I think, other than at striker. But yeah, and I think City will probably go on and win it again this year. For relegation, I think Norwich are locked in. I think Burnley are in real trouble for the first time in a while. As good as Dyche is, that squad is thin. And I know they signed Maxwell Cornet from Lyon this morning, but yeah, that squad is thin and it really, really lacks creativity. And they've only got one move, and that's knock it long. So that style of football doesn't bode well. And I know Watford have started really brightly, but I think it's not going to really take long for teams to figure them out at the moment. But I think the third spot for me, Norwich and Burnley are basically locked in. But I think that third spot could go from sort of anyone from Newcastle, unfortunately, and then Brentford, Watford. I think that Brighton play really nice football, but they really don't score a lot of goals. I think they could get dragged into it again. And Southampton, I think, as good as Adam Armstrong is, and Shea Adams shows glimpses, I think Ward-Prowse will have to hit about 15 free kicks to keep them in the league if either of the strikers stop scoring. So, yeah, I think I think I said before the podcast that I think the bottom 10 teams will be closer than ever, and the top 10 teams might be the same. But I think that top 4 of Liverpool, City, and Chelsea and United, they'll be by far away, even by Christmas, probably by far away ahead of the chasing pack. West Ham have started great, but I don't see them winning the league with just Mikel Antonio up top. And as good as Spurs are, those wins are going to stop under Nuno at some point. So
yeah. All right, well, guys, that's all we have time for today. I'd love to thank Alex for joining us. I hope you'll be able to give us a better prediction sometime in the future and you'll be returning to Football Worldwide. But thank you for joining.
Thanks for having me, mate. I'd love to come back.
Definitely. And to all of us here at Football Worldwide, thank you for tuning in. You'll be able to catch Everything EPL as well as Serie A Roundtable hosted by Anthony and European Weekly Catch-Up hosted by myself and Jonathan. From all of us, thank you. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and enjoy this international break because when it returns, football is going to come at you thick and fast with the induction of Champions League. Take care.